am thrilled to introduce David Aldridge, senior columnist for The Athletic, primarily covering the NBA and Washington, D.C. sports. The Athletic is a digital subscription sports website now operating through the New York Times Company and has more than 1.2 million subscribers worldwide. David has spent more than 30 years covering the NBA as a print, broadcast, and digital journalist. Before joining The Athletic in 2018, he worked for Turner Sports, and he's also worked for ESPN, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and the Washington Post. David was the 2016 recipient of the Kurt Gowdy Media Award from the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, the highest honor available for members of the print and electronic media, short of enshrinement in the hall itself. The award singles out winners for, in the words of the hall, outstanding contributions to basketball. He was also given the National Association of Black Journalists 2016 Legacy Award and the Sam Lacey Award given to the Journalist of the Year by the Rainbow Push Coalition, among many, many other honors. David, in partnership with John Hollinger, takes us through a celebration of basketball and the history of the NBA through the profiles of 100 of the greatest players of all time. Speaking of greatest of all time, or GOAT, as we like to call it, as a fan of basketball and a professional player in my head, I found I found this book to be an amazing account of the game and the players who have captivated us all through time. But I am sure you get this a lot, David. As a native of Cleveland, a lifelong Cleveland Cavaliers fan, and a dedicated LeBron James supporter.
No idea where this is going.
I think the framework used for the rankings could use a little tweaking. Because, of course, LeBron is the GOAT. You said it yourself, he changed the game forever in 2003 when he entered the league out of high school, something Michael Jordan did not do. You do at least concede that he is still playing, so I can only hope that the next incredible edition of this book or another catches up to his GOAT status.
Good luck with that.
We invited you here anyway, David. I am looking forward to hearing more from you today, and I know all of you are as well, so I'm going to stop talking and introduce longtime sports executive, adjunct journalism professor, and author and news director at Montgomery Community Media, Joe Yasharoff, who will be interviewing David. Thank you all for being here, and buy lots of books.
That is quite a resume, David.
Yes, you do have quite a resume, Joe. That's
No,
good resume.
you.
Oh, me. Okay.
And you've been doing it 30 years. You don't look like you've been doing it 30 years.
I've been doing it 37 years. 30, almost 38. Yeah.
So we're gonna be talking about this book,
Yeah.
Basketball 100, which I found fascinating. Let me put the mic up to my mouth. I found fascinating, and I love how you started it with Draymond Green.
Yes.
Now, that wasn't an accident. That wasn't by points, right?
Well, it wasn't an accident in the sense that he was one of the 100. He made the cut, but 100 by definition means you have to stop at 100. You can't go to. So there were other people who were considering for 100 as well. And to be frank, it was close. We're going back and forth. And our publisher said, well, I mean, if you're torn, why not go with the guy that maybe has a little bit more juice? And that seemed reasonable to us. It didn't seem unreasonable to us. So, there were people that you would know who were right on that list, right on the cut line. Again, it wasn't easy, but you have to at some point stop counting. you have to get to 100, and so we had to pick somebody. So that's what we did.
And he is not your classic top 100 player. He does things that a lot of people don't do. He doesn't score 20 points a game,
right,
but he does so many things. So how would you explain to someone who perceives Draymond as a guy who's, gets into scuffles and punches people and
right,
that kind of thing? How do you explain to them that, yes, he does that, but he's a great player.
I think if you look in the history of the game, there's always been provocateurs on lots of championship teams. Dennis Rodman was a classic provocateur. He's also in the book because sometimes their impact is so outsized that you can't imagine, and correctly so, their teams wouldn't have won without them. You take Draymond Green off the Warriors, they don't win 4 NBA titles. They just don't. The things that he does defensively to disrupt other teams' offenses, to make it really difficult for people to get into what they want to do. His ability to play center at arguably 6'6", 6'7", in the earliest iteration of the Warriors team. They called it the death lineup for a reason, because their plus minus when he was on the floor playing center was off the charts good, because of their ability to switch and their ability to defend the post and still rebound and get out and turn people over. It was just remarkable. Now he's slowed down some as he's gotten older, but he still cerebrally is one of the smartest players who's ever played this game. He understands schemes and offenses and the best way to disrupt offenses as well as anybody who's ever played.
By the way, I forgot to thank Tanisha for the great intro.
Yes.
And for giving David a hard time right off the bat about his choice of Michael Jordan over LeBron James.
It's not my choice, but it is my choice. And it's not particularly close. But we can talk about that later if you like.
Okay, we're going to come back to that. And I also wanted to thank Judd Ashman, who created this book festival.
Yes.
And it's grown into something huge, and I think it's an incredible thing. And so thank you to Judd for having us today.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so my wife, who just sat down there.
Thank God somebody's here to heckle me properly.
Yeah, we got a heckler now.
There you go.
Have known you for a few years. I won't speak for her, but I'll speak for me. So I've always been a fan of you as a person, as a writer, but specifically, I'm a fan of your brain. I want your brain, and the reason I'm saying that is when you read a lot of columnists, and there are a lot of good ones, but when I think I know something going in, I'll read your column and I go, I didn't know that, and then you'll back it up. So is part of what you do trying to, I don't know if teach is the right word, but to set people straight maybe?
I was a history major at American University, and I love history. I think it's vital, if we're going to go forward as a species, to understand our history and learn from it and do better because of it. And so I always feel that part of my calling in covering sports is not to just write about who won or who lost, but put it in some sort of context to understand. One of my dearest friends who was here last year, and I actually helped interview her. She wrote a wonderful book about the history of the drug war in the United States. And once she's a history professor, and what she always says is no matter what subject you're thinking about, contemplating, talking about, arguing, discussing, you should understand it's a lot more complicated than you think, and they've been thinking about this problem from a lot longer than you know.
Yeah.
and so I like to bring that to sports. No matter what we're talking about, somebody else talked about it 20 years ago, somebody probably talked about it 40 years ago, and try to put it in sort of a historical context so that you can explain, this is why Draymond Green's in the book, because of all the other provocateurs who have played in this league at a high level and helped win championships as well. And so that's what I like to do. It's hard to do. You don't do it all the time, but I like to try and do it when I can.
So this book, obviously is a list book, and there are a few other list books.
Sure.
And it lists players, and it talks about the players, but it's really about the history of basketball,
right.
The culture of basketball. Is that
right.
correct?
Yes. My friend Andy Tapscott, who was the coach at AU when I was there and is now with the Minnesota Timberwolves, always used to say basketball is a culture, and it is. The gist of it is simple. If you like basketball, you can be a part of basketball. That's really that simple. And so everybody's welcome as long as you love basketball. And even people like me who couldn't play it dead. I sucked. I was terrible at it. But I loved the game. Loved it growing up. Loved it as a kid. Loved it as a teenager. Loved it as an adult. And it's marvelous. It's the best manifestation of humanity in my view, because you have 5 people who, at any given point in time, if it's done well, put aside whatever ambitions they have individually to try to do something collectively. And nobody cares if you're black or white or if you're 7 feet tall or 5'8". If you can play, you can play, and you get a chance to play. And that's what I love about the game. And I fell in love with it when I was 7 or 8 years old, and I've never stopped.
By the way, if you haven't seen David's shoes, very apropos, he wore old school
Yes.
Converse All-Stars, and I'm really mad that I didn't do that as well. But I did bring a basketball just in
Yes,
case we want to
absolutely.
play. All right, so you mentioned AU, American University. David is an unapologetic. He's in my opinion, the most passionate fan of AU sports.
Love it.
Whether they win, whether they lose, he cares more than anyone I've ever seen. Where does that come from, beside the fact that you went to AU?
Well, I mean, that's the big part of it. AU was my safety school. I've told people that over the years. It's not a secret. I had three other schools that I wanted to go to. Got into all of them, but couldn't afford it. There was a gap. Couldn't close the gap. Got some money. Got just not quite enough money. And I went to AU because I could live at home and stay at home. I didn't have to pay to live in a dorm. And I had never been to Spring Valley, which is where American University is located. I grew up in Northeast D.C. I had never been to that part of Washington, D.C. ever. I literally did not know where American University was. I had to take 2 buses to get there, and the only reason I knew I was still in D.C. is because I looked up and the street signs were still green. It's the only clue I had that I was still in Washington. And it changed my life completely. Not that I would have had a bad life if I hadn't gone to AU. I would have had a perfectly good life. But going there changed my life. And it made everything that happened afterward possible. And so I met my wife there. I met my best friend there. You know, if I have 10 real friends in the world, I'd say 6 or 7 of them are people that I went to school with. And, you know, you just can't. What's the value of that? What's the value of that in your life? And so my love for the school is complete, and it manifests itself by rooting for the teams.
And the school you went to before, DeMatha Catholic High School,
Correct.
also a huge part of your life.
Absolutely.
And now the coach of your basketball team is a DeMatha.
That's right.
And Maryland alum,
Coach
by the
Simpkins.
way. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
So you have to be happy. And maybe you had something to do with Dwayne Simpkins coming to AU. I don't know. I've heard little birdies talk.
I don't know that that gives me way too much credit, and I don't have the financial wherewithal to make sure that Coach Simpkins went to DeMatha, but I have an opinion, and I know that Dwayne has always, over the years that I've talked to him, when he was an assistant coach at George Mason and other places, he would always make it clear that if the AU job was ever available, that was something he'd be interested in, which is not a sentence you hear from many basketball coaches. And so the fact that he always said that resonated with me. So when the job did come open and he applied for it, I made that abundantly clear to the people that made the decision.
That was a good move, as we've seen in the last couple of years.
It's been pretty good.
The foreword of this book, written
Yes.
by a guy named Chuck Barkley.
Charles Wade Barkley.
Was that
yes.
an easy thing? Hey, Chuck, I need you to write the foreword.
Was
Is that
not.
how it happened?
It was not. We were very fortunate that the great producer of Inside the NBA, Tim Kiley, who's a legend in the TV business, his daughter happens to work for us at The Athletic. And so when we knew we were going to write this book, calls were made. Calls were made from one child to her dad, and from one former employee of her dad's to her dad, to impress upon Chuck the hope that he would do this for free. And he did, thankfully.
Really?
Yeah, no, he did it for free. Because he knew TK, and he loves TK's daughter, and he likes me enough that he didn't say no. So that worked out well.
That was pretty cool. You open the book, and right off the jump, it's Chuck Barkley.
There it is.
And then in the intro, you write, and I'm not going to read the entire book so we can get people to buy them, actually.
There you go. That's what this is for.
But in the intro, you say, we made our choices. We could be wrong, but we aren't.
We're not.
You
no.
believe?
Why not?
But some people have gone up to you today, just that I've seen in the
Every
last
day
couple-
since the
and-
book came out.
and told you that you're wrong. So, but
okay.
is that the point of the book?
That is exactly the point of the book. I would be very disappointed if everybody agreed with all 100 choices in order. That would be kind of boring. I want your arguments, but again, they're incorrect, but I'd love to hear them. I welcome them, even in their incorrectness. I think that it's worth having a discussion about. I love listening.
Now, I would never argue with you, David, but Joel Embiid, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
He doesn't play any games, David. He
doesn't
misses like
now.
50. Okay, but before, he did enough before
Did enough to
make-
be the MVP of the league 2 years ago. So
Okay.
yeah, I would say he's had a couple of bad years injury-wise, but until then, he was a pretty good player and certainly 100 worthy. I would put that way.
Okay. So we have some local, obviously local guys. Washington, I don't know if you agree with the statement that Washington, D.C. is the greatest hotbed of basketball over the last 6 decades.
I mean, I'm biased, but I certainly think so. Yes.
It's hard to beat. So including folks that played with the Bullets, including Baltimore and Washington,
Right.
people who are from the area. You got Wes Unseld, Elvin Hayes, Pearl Monroe played in Baltimore, Kevin Durant, Dave Bing, Elgin Baylor, David Robinson, Allen Iverson, Grant Hill, Adrian Dantley, who didn't make the list.
Did not make the book.
I wish he did, but
It
that's
was
okay.
close.
It was close.
Very close. Yes.
AD will be in the next book, the second
If
one.
if we have the basketball 110, AD will be in it.
Okay, that's fair. Alonzo Mourning. Let's talk about Sam Jones. We were talking
Yeah.
to State Senator Cheryl Kagan earlier,
Yeah.
and she brought up Sam Jones.
Yeah.
And what a great player. So
Yeah,
what was
no,
your
I was
role?
happy. I was happy we
Yeah.
got Sam in because Sam is criminally underrated and forgotten, and he shouldn't be. Because, look, I wasn't there, but Bill Russell was, and Bill Russell says Sam Jones is the reason we won all these championships.
Wow.
I'll
Wow.
take Bill Russell's word for it. If you go back and look at the numbers that Sam put up in playoff series and in finals, they're ridiculous. He rose to the moment every time, made big shots all the time, defended at a high level. Bill Russell's got 11 rings. Nobody else has 11. Sam Jones has 10. So that tells you his impact on that Celtics dynasty. He was right there with Bill for almost all of it, and certainly is worthy of being a top 100 player.
And for those who don't know about Sam Jones, he has big-time local ties.
Yes.
Tell folks what he did for
He
many
was
many
a
years.
substitute teacher in both the D.C. and Maryland public schools for decades after he finished playing. And just one of the nicest, most humble guys you would ever meet. I was honored to be able to talk to him at the Hall of Fame. Not interview him, but just talk to him. And that's the great part about going to the Hall of Fame, is that you get to meet these people. You get to sit with Tiny Archibald for an hour and talk about basketball. Like, that's pretty cool, right? So, so to be able to talk to Mr. Jones and just kind of listen to him tell his stories for many years was just a treat.
Speaking of Hall of Fame, you're in the Hall of Fame, David. I know you
Correct.
weren't a great shooter or a great dunker.
was terrible.
But you're in the Hall of Fame. How cool is that when you walk in there or somebody walks in and say, oh, my God, David Aldridge in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame?
It's bizarre. It's a bizarre feeling, Joe. You do this for a long time, and nobody, well, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I didn't do it because I thought, well, someday I'll be in the Hall of Fame. Or, no, you do it because you love sports and you want to be around it, and you like covering it, and you like talking to people who are in sports. And you never think, I mean, you don't think about you. You really don't. I mean, I don't. I mean, it's just not how I'm wired. You just think about the work. I always used to say the work speaks for me. Okay, I'm not a big talker. I don't like talking about myself a lot. The work should speak for me. The work should tell you what I'm about and who I am. And it's not quite that way anymore in my business, unfortunately, but it is. It's the reality of it. It's who I'm not changing. So to kind of be recognized for your work is incredibly humbling, and I'm incredibly grateful that people thought and think I'm worthy of that.
You are. I agree with them. By the way, I see Judd Ashman. Judd, I already gave you all the compliments beforehand. So not only is the mayor of Gaithersburg the creator CEO of this, those aren't either of his full-time jobs, by the way, which I don't understand how that works. Maybe, have you written a book, Judd, and maybe you should know? Okay, maybe next year.
About creating a book festival.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Sounds
This is
good.
remarkable. This is this is our
Congratulations.
5th or 6th time here. It's fantastic. It's really wonderful.
You're going to need a bigger boat soon. You're going to need a bigger field, I think. Okay, so we talked about Hall of Fame. Now, we touched on Michael Jordan and LeBron.
Yeah.
The old Jordan-LeBron argument,
Sure.
which some people say is not an argument.
It's not.
All right, so I'm going to ask you. Okay, so tell us why it's not.
All right, you have to preface this, as I always do, by saying LeBron's got a case. It's insane to say he doesn't have a case. Like, he's played 20 years at an incredibly high level. He had more hype than anybody who ever came into this league and lived up to every second of it. He's been everything he was supposed to be and more. And he's got 4 championships. He made 9 straight finals. Like, that's insane. Those are insane numbers. He's got a case. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's got a case. Scored 38,000 points. Up until 2 years ago, that record had stood for almost 40 years. He scored 38,000 points with essentially one shot
Yeah, skyhook.
that everybody knew was coming.
Yeah.
And nobody could stop.
That's true.
So he didn't cross people over. There was no three-point line for the vast majority of his career. He made 1 three-pointer in his career. 1. He had 1 move, and he scored 38,000 points with it. And that's remarkable. And he won 6 NBA championships and was 6-time MVP. So Kareem's got a case, okay? Magic Johnson's got a case. 5-time champion. Really saved the NBA along with Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. He's got a case. Bill Russell's got a case. Okay. He's got 11. Nobody else has 11. 11 championships in 13 seasons. So all those people have a case. I always say I can only talk about the people I've seen. I didn't see Bill Russell play live. I was a kid. I was like a 5-year-old when Wilt Chamberlain stopped playing. I was 4 when Bill Russell retired. I didn't see them play. Michael Jordan's the greatest player I've ever seen. It's not close. It's not close. He's impacted winning on both ends of the floor more consistently and for a longer period of time than anybody I've ever seen. He was the single greatest mentally tough player I've ever seen. The physical gifts spoke for themselves, but it wasn't that. It was his will. It was his will to overcome whatever circumstances. I saw a lot of games where Michael Jordan was 7 of 22 from the floor. Lots. There's a lot of times where he missed shots. But he still impacted the game. You still knew he was there. I used to work at TNT with Doug Collins, and Doug Collins used to always say the great players leave their fingerprints on every game. They do something where you know they were there. And Michael Jordan did something every game to let you know that he was in that game.
When you worked for TNT, how many years was that? Was that
14.
14?
Yeah.
By the way, I miss you doing those interviews on the court.
It was fun. It was great. It was great. I loved
So
doing it.
you had a front row seat for Michael Jordan.
I did.
So tell us something that maybe we don't know or that's not in the book, or something from being there and seeing Jordan, whether it's during the game or before or after or anything.
I could tell you stories, but none of them would. They'd all be. They're too risque.
Okay. How about, do you have one non-risque story?
I have. I mean, just to get a set, I'll tell you. There's 2 things I've always said. Michael Jordan was 6'6". He's still 6'6". And I always said if Michael Jordan were 5'6" instead of 6'6", he'd be the most successful serial killer of all time.
Okay.
Because he's insane.
Yeah.
He's just a crazy competitive person. Like he couldn't find an outlet for his competitive zeal. But there's 2. The story that I always think is the best story is the one that Jeff Capel, who's now the coach at the University of Pittsburgh, told me years after Jordan retired. So Capel played at Duke, or he coached at Duke, I should say, and he was always part of those runs that they would have at North Carolina at Chapel Hill every year. So all the old North Carolina players and some of the Duke players would get together every summer, and they still do, and have these incredible runs. So every great player, Sam Perkins, Michael Jordan, all of them, Amaker, everybody, to Danny Ferry, everybody who ever played in that era goes back in the summer, and they would go have a run. So this was after Jordan retired, the second time, the last time. He was still in good enough shape to play. So he was 43, 44 years old, maybe. So they had a run in the afternoon, and Michael was terrible. It's terrible. Couldn't make a shot. Dribbling the ball off his foot. It's awful. And the players, they finally have a chance to give Michael Jordan some business here. Get off the court, old man. You don't belong here anymore. Get up. You're done. So Capel says the next morning he got there early because he wanted to get a lift in. So he was there at 5:30 in the morning to get a lift in. He gets to the weight room and he hears the unmistakable sound of sneakers on the court. There's no other sound like that. Basketball sneakers on the court. There's nothing else that sounds like that anywhere. He looks out, and there is Michael Jordan at 5:30 in the morning doing suicides. I don't know if you guys know what suicides are. They're also called 17s. Basically, you have to run across the floor in a certain period of time. And if you don't do it a certain number of times in that period of time, 17 seconds is usually what you get. That's why it's called that's why they're called 17s. If you don't do it, you got to start over. And Jordan's sprinting. He's got cones set up. Sprinting. Does this for 20 minutes. He gets shots up. He's at the elbows. He's not dunking. It's all jumpers. He's got a full sweat. He is in a full lather at 5:30 in the morning. And he went out on the court that day and destroyed everybody. He didn't even want them to have a story about beating him. That's how competitive Michael Jordan was. And it manifested itself when he could do something, when he was gifted physically, with the dominance that he showed in the championships that the Bulls won.
By the way, I saw State Senator Cheryl Kagan joined us, working every day to save our democracy. So thank you, State Senator Kagan. What was either the biggest argument, best argument, or an argument that you want to share about this book, like this guy versus this guy?
I mean, it was more about how high, right? Mm-hmm. How high should Steph Curry be? And there was, I think he wound up, was he 12th? I don't know.
Yes, 12th.
So there was some argument he should be in the top 10. And again, He's got a case, right? They're not wrong. It's just that at some point you have to start ranking them in order. Like we have to have a book. We have to decide. And so we wound up deciding. But not really at the top. I know people think we were hammer and tong fighting each other about the top 5. We weren't, not really. It kind of really, when we got there, was like, well, LeBron's got to be in, and Michael's got to be in. We knew that. Kareem's got to be in. Russell's got to be in. So I guess the argument started at 5, really, with Magic, right? So, and Wilt's got a case, too.
Yes, he does.
Wilt has a case, too.
100 points in a game.
Yeah, just dominance. Just look at his numbers. Just go look up his numbers. Nobody else has numbers like that. Like, he averaged 50 points a game for a whole season. Like, that's insane. So, yeah, he's got a case. So, yeah, I mean, but really, well, I'll say this. As the newer players who are now in the book, like Jokic and Luka and those guys, there was some discussion because it was real time. Their numbers weren't frozen.
Right.
So their numbers kept getting better, and so the arguments for them kept getting louder, and justifiably so. I mean, we started this as a top 75. It was to coincide with the NBA's 75th anniversary in 2022. So, Luke, I don't know if Luka was in the book. Jokic was in the book, but it was low. But that was before he had won his second and third NBA MVP awards. So now in the book, he's much higher, as he should be, because he's got 3 MVPs.
Tanisha, you'll give me the signal when we open. We're going to open it up to
Yes,
questions.
please.
Can I do one more before we? Okay. You mentioned Jokic, Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
How would you? An alien lands on Earth. How would you explain Jokic? He looks like a a not in shape big dude who works on a farm, and I think he does.
He does.
And how is he so dominant both inside and outside, looking the way he does?
Because number one, he's a way better athlete than people give him credit for being. He's a way better athlete. Like, he's not going to win a 100-yard dash against many people, but if you keep running, if you start with 100 yards and then you keep running for hours and hours and hours, I guarantee you at the end of the day he's going to be in the top 5, because he just doesn't stop running. Like, he's just got incredible stamina. He's made himself into a great athlete that way, and he's just, his court vision is like Magic's. I mean, that's the best compliment I can give anybody. He sees the floor like Magic did. He throws guys open. Like, they're not open when the ball leaves his hands, but by the time it gets there, they are open, because he sees where they're going to go. And he's just got incredible ability to find people, open people in the corners and up top, and he's got a great touch with the ball. He has the Sombor shuffle, which he showed the other night, which is just, it's ridiculous one-legged three-pointer that he shoots, and he makes it a lot. He's a phenomenally talented, smart, tough basketball player. Don't get it twisted. He is a basketball player, and he's a great one.
All right, I'm sure we have some questions. I saw that hand first. Let the arguments begin.
Yes, please.
It's on. Thanks. Glad to hear you talk about Sam Jones. Agree, criminally underrated. Besides him, who comes to mind when you think of truly great players who are underappreciated both historically and playing today?
Artis Gilmore, I always think, is a great player who doesn't get any recognition at all. He was a great player for a long time in both the ABA and the NBA. Now, this is an NBA book because we had to have some kind of shaping of it. It couldn't. If it was just the best 100 basketball players, then you could make, you could put all kinds of different people in the discussion. So to give it some framework, we had to not write about the ABA players as much as we would have liked. But yeah, Artis was a great player. He's in the book, but probably isn't thought of as highly as he was. Dave Bing is another one, because he played on Pistons teams that never made the conference. I think they made one conference final, but never the NBA finals, so he never got to play on the biggest stage. He and Lanier was hurt a lot early in his career, so they didn't get the best of those two playing together, which would have been very different. Boy, there's just so many guys that you think about that fall into that category, but those would be two that come to mind quickly.
Before we go to this gentleman standing in the back, Dave Bing. Greatest career after basketball, would you say?
The mayor of Detroit, yeah, I would say so.
And the president of Bing Steel.
And the president of Bing Steel,
Not bad.
Made lots of money, really was one of the people. If you talk to Isaiah Thomas and Jalen Rose and players who are from Detroit, he was the mentor for them in terms of business. After your career is done, you have to find something else to do. And Dave got involved in the business world while he was a player, and then became an executive and made a lot of money, and then ran for mayor and was mayor. Really got Detroit through the bottom part of their worst days when they had to declare bankruptcy. He was the mayor when they did that, because that was the only way that the city could survive, and it has survived and come back.
And played for the Bullets one year. Gentleman in the back.
The author of the Baseball 100 had to deal with well over 100 years of history.
Sure.
And he had the Negro Leagues issue, and he did a very good job with both. Do you feel lucky that your history was only X number of years?
Sure. Yeah.
And where did you draw the line?
Of course you feel. Everybody has a baseline that they have to work from. Joe's was obviously very different from ours, and he had to. Now the stats are better now in the Negro Leagues because of Sabre and other entities that have really worked hard to find those stats, but they're still not complete. So you have to kind of fill in the blanks where you can. We didn't have that problem, but you still have a problem. For example, as I was saying before, like, we'd love to have the ABA players in this book. Like, there's some people who think Dr. J should be higher than he is, and he was 18th, I believe. The reason why he's probably not higher is because most of his career was in the ABA. His best years were in the ABA, but he was still so good in the NBA that we felt like we had to include him. So you have that discrepancy. Same with Moses Malone, right? He played in the ABA early in his career. So you have those kind of things that you have to deal with, but everybody's got something. So we dealt with ours as best we could.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you for being here.
Sure,
thank
my
you
pleasure.
for taking the time and also focusing on AU as well. I have a question with respect to the various periods. Certainly the three-point shot has radically changed the game. And a person like Steph Curry when Kareem played, perhaps wouldn't have been quite the impactful player that he is today. So my question to you is, again, since you're a history guy, and perhaps you can foresee more about being prescient into the future, if you could innovate something in professional basketball that would change the game, what type of either shot or what type of rule would you choose to implement that might change the game?
I'm glad you brought up the rules, because this is it's very difficult to have discussions about who the greatest players are, because they played under such radically different rules than they played. I mean, the rules that were in the game when I started covering the league are gone. They're completely gone. The physicality, the hand checking, all of those things that you could do, you can't do those anymore. At least you can't do them for very long. And so you have to tell me what rules we're playing under, and then I can tell you who I think's better. If I could change, one thing that Phil Jackson said a long time ago, which I agree with, is to make the court wider, not longer, wider, give the players more room. I think that's part of the problem we have now, is that the players are so skilled that there's not enough space for them. And he always said to make the court wider, but it's never going to happen, because those are courtside seats that they're selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, so they're not going to get rid of those seats. But I would make the court wider. I would not get rid of the corner three, but I would radically reduce the number of corner threes that are in the game. I think that they make the game not as aesthetically pleasing as I think it can be. It's hard for me to watch a team come down on a 3-on-1 break and nobody go to the front of the rim. Everybody fan out to the three-point line. That's just hard for me to watch. Not because they can't make it, but because there's a layup or a dunk right there. It's right there, and I was always told the dunk is a very high percentage shot. So I wish we would get back. I think the game's a little out of balance. I think there's a little too much three-point shooting in the game now. Not because I don't know math. Three's more than two. I understand that. But I think there's too many threes in the game right now, and there needs to be some more half-court play in the game.
Can we get rid of traveling, David, and the Euro step, please?
Well, the Euro step's not traveling, but there is traveling in the game that I wish they would call.
Sir.
Yes, I'm going to just mention number 4, Bill Russell versus number 1. Our daughter went to Carolina, and when they won a national championship with Tyler Hansborough and Danny Green and that crew, and but Bill Russell, was not. He only had one college recruiting. He wins two national championships back to back.
San Francisco.
And the Olympics in '56.
Yep.
And he's the greatest defensive player I ever saw, only on TV, hands down. And 2 of his 11 championships are as a player coach.
Right.
And so I'm just curious, him versus Jordan, because I know Jordan may have had a bigger impact helping expand the game. But
Yeah.
Anyway, your thoughts about that?
Again, Bill's got a case, and it's a great case. And if you think Bill Russell's the best, I'm not going to argue with you. You certainly can make that case. He's the greatest winner, obviously, in the history of the game. And I would say at all levels of the game, because to your point, he won not only in college at University of San Francisco, won in high school at McClymonds, won the gold medal in '56. So he won more games. He won more championships than anybody else. So I'm not going to argue with you. It's just a matter of preference at that stage. What's your favorite ice cream? You know,
Butter pecan.
everybody has their favorite ice cream, and I'm not going to convince you otherwise, and I don't want to. I want you to believe what you believe, and it's okay. We don't have to all agree on everything.
Kareem graduates from Power Memorial, goes straight to the NBA. Who winds up being the greatest scorer of all time?
If Kareem went straight to high school, well, he'd
No,
still...
I'm saying he left Power Memorial, went to UCLA.
Yes.
If he didn't, if he could have gone straight to
Sure.
the NBA, who would have won,
Well,
him or LeBron?
I mean, I'm sure Kareem would probably still be the greatest scorer of all time. But you can make that argument for a lot of people who wound up going to college for however many years they went to college. But to your point is well taken. That was not an option for Kareem. He had to go to college, as everybody did in those days. But certainly, again, Kareem's greatness speaks for itself. And if it doesn't, I hope we spoke for it in the book, because he was great.
Thank you for being here. I was pleased to see such great representation from the DMV. I'm wondering who from the DMV was on the bubble and didn't make it in. And I have regards for you from Chauncey Faust.
Oh, tell Chauncey I said hello. Adrian Dantley. Adrian Dantley was right there. It was really close. It was really close. AD was a great player for a decade or more in the NBA, and again, in college at Notre Dame and high school at DeMatha, obviously, was a great physical small forward. They don't have those anymore, but AD was a physical small forward who could post you up and score and beat you up. A really, really great shooter, even though they didn't have the three back then, but the mid-range shot was very good. But he was right there, right on the edge of the 100. He was right there.
And probably changed his body more than anyone
Absolutely.
that I can remember. He used to be the little chunky guy.
Yes.
And then he turned
And he
into...
got in shape.
I think it was Nautilus back in the beginning
Back
days
in
of
the day,
Nautilus.
yeah.
Who's next?
Hi, David. I'm a long time and until recently a very long-suffering Knicks fan. So good
Good
time
for you.
finally. Yeah, but seriously, to use Jalen Brunson as a model, and you touched on this, and I agree with you about Jordan. Why do you think so many NBA executives, people around the game, obviously fans, either underestimate or completely misunderstand the importance of mental toughness? I mean, he was a second-round pick. I know he's short, but come on. 2 national championships, player of the year. Why don't they get it? It's not all athleticism. It's mental toughness.
No,
is
it's
so
not.
big.
You're right. That's part of it. I don't think they underestimate mental toughness. I just think they miss on players. That's all. I mean, I think you see a guy in college and maybe he's playing in a system that doesn't allow him to do what he can actually do. Guys get better. A guy in college may be better 3 years into his pro career. Because they have time to work on their weaknesses, whether it's ball handling or shooting or defense or whatever it is. They get better. I just think we miss on people. That's it's part of life. It's an inexact science. In fact, it's no science at all, really. You take guys. That's why a lot of guys that get picked number 1 aren't the best players in their draft. We just don't know. You don't know until they get on the floor, and they're playing for money against grown men, and what that brings out in people. Like, nobody knew Jalen was going to be this good. Nobody did. They thought he'd be a good player. Look, I remember this distinctly when Steph came out. I remember thinking, well, if Steph has as good a career as his dad, he's done well for himself. Because his dad, Del Curry, was one of the best 6 men in the league back when I started covering the league. He was really good as a 6th man, and that's what I thought Steph Curry would be. I was wrong. I was loud, stupid wrong. It happens.
Another Knicks question. So, first time in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think 25 years.
25 years, yep.
How big of a deal is it for the Knicks, for the fans, for the NBA, that the Knicks are now part of the Final Four in the NBA?
The one thing it does do is, for the love of God, it stops these insane conspiracy theories. I had to hear from Knicks fans for the last quarter century about how the league's rigging it against the Knicks, and I just always say, you do know they're the #1 media market in the world, right? Like, that would be really stupid of the NBA to rig it so that their #1 media market doesn't make the finals. Boy, they really suck at tampering and making and rigging games. But I'm happy for the fans. They've waited a long time to have a team this good in New York, and they are this good. They're an excellent team, and it's going to be a great series with them in Indiana.
Speaking of conspiracy theories,
Yes.
NBA and conspiracy theories go hand in hand. The NBA lottery. Dallas has a 1 point whatever chance. They get the #1 pick after, for some reason, trading Luka Doncic. And the Wizards, get the 6th pick. So was it a conspiracy, David? Shed some light,
Someone
please.
wrote this right after the day after the draft, and I think this is my position, and I tend to agree with it. It's not that I think it was fixed or rigged, but I do think the results seem to always benefit, recent results have benefited teams who just happen to lose transcendent players. So LeBron leaves Cleveland and goes to Miami. The very next year, Cleveland gets the #1 pick in the draft. The Pelicans have to trade Anthony Davis because he don't want to be there anymore. The very next year, they get Zion Williamson. The Mavericks immolate their franchise in front of the whole world by trading Luka, and the very next year they get the best American recruit in the last 20 years, or prospect in the last 20 years. So it's not that I think it's being rigged. It's just that the results. My problem with the lottery is that it's not doing what the lottery purportedly is designed to do, which is to get the best young players to the teams that need the help the most. And regardless, Dallas isn't as good without Luka, but they don't need the first pick in the draft. The teams at the bottom want the Wizards and the Hornets and the Jazz. They needed the first pick in the draft. And so I think that that's something that needs to be looked at, because it's great that San Antonio got Victor Wembanyama. Good for them. But they've also gotten 2 top 5 picks after that. And again, is that good for the league that this concentration of young talent is all in one place instead of being spread out, which is the whole point of what you're doing at the top with all of the penalties that you have for spending too much money? That's only designed so that teams can't hoard good players, so that more players have to go play elsewhere. Well, if you want it at the top, why don't you want it at the bottom? That's all I would add. That's mine.
Last one. I'm old enough to remember the Wizards winning the championship in 1978. There might be a couple others that, all right, way to go.
Bullets.
Wes and Elvin and Tom Henderson, all those guys. Greg Ballard. Will some of us ever see the Wizards being good again, David? Most important question of the day.
Look, I never thought I'd see a black man be elected president of the United States in my lifetime. I thought that was something my kids might see at the end of their lives. So I'll never say never, but no, I mean, it's not as dire as people make it out to be. I mean, you stink and stink and stink, and then you get a transcendent player, and then you don't stink anymore. That's what this is all designed to do. So, if the Wizards can in the next year or two get a great young player in the draft through the lottery, they have a chance to turn it around rather quickly. If they don't, then they have to do a mid-build, which is what lots of teams do, some successfully, and that will be the way they have to do it. So no, I don't think it's. And the East is way down. I mean, compared to the West, the West is much better top to bottom than the East is. So you don't have as many teams to climb over. So no, I don't think it's impossible. They have a good group in place now. It's incumbent upon them. You can't make excuses. You got the pick you got. You got to get a good player at 6, period, point blank. You got to get somebody that helps you win, start winning games.
So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance. It's always a chance.
Thank you, David Aldridge. Can we sneak in one more? One more. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Make it good. Make it count.
Yep.
Luka.
Oh, with no defense? With no defense whatsoever? Look, I used to be the guy to always write the story about. You'll appreciate this. DJ Strawberry.
Oh, I love DJ.
Remember DJ Strawberry?
Oh,
great defensive player. Great defensive player at Maryland. And he used to always say, well, if you always say defense wins championships, why don't you have people that actually play defense on your team? And I asked Greg Popovich this once, not on camera, but we were before a game, and I used DJ as an example, and he said, the object of the game is to put the orange thing in the round thing as many times as possible. And so while I agree, look, I prefer defense to offense. But the object of the game is to put the orange thing in the round thing, and Luka does that at an exceptionally high level, both as a scorer and as a passer. Like, he's elite at that, so that's why.
David, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Go out and get this book, The Basketball 100. You'll read it and you'll reread it like I'm doing.